Good morning, and this is Dave Butler from Don Johnston. Oftentimes I'm asked, what is UPAR and why do I need it? Well, UPAR is an acronym which stands for the Universal Protocol for Accommodations in Reading and is the online adaptation of the paper-based version Protocol for Accommodation in Reading, or PAR, created by Dr. Denise DeCoste and Linda Bastiani Wilson from the High Incidence Assistive Technology team in Montgomery County, Maryland. The purpose of both PAR and UPAR is to be able to provide with data and measure exactly how many grade levels a student's comprehension will improve with a simple instructional support called a read aloud. So what might UPAR look like? So here we have a group of students, and these students all have two things in common. First, they are all below grade level readers. Secondly, each of these students has to comprehend classroom content on a daily basis. That's our goal for every student. Now, some of these students might be students with disabilities. They might be second language learners, or possibly Title I students. Those are always the three subgroups that have the greatest percentage of struggling learners. Yet, it's our general education that actually have the greatest number of struggling learners, just simply because we have so many more gen ed students versus our individual subgroups. So these students all need to access grade level content and comprehend it on a daily basis. So we know that each of these students, as we look at our intervention and ongoing progress monitoring data, each of these students are reading below grade level, so therefore are going to struggle when they are asked to read or access grade level text. But many of these actually can with a simple instructional support. How do we know which ones can do that? That's the purpose of UPAR. So when we look at the process, we know that the number one way that a student comes to a read aloud accommodation is based upon the recommendation of a classroom teacher. But yet that same research also talks about that a classroom teacher is oftentimes no better than a coin flip in determining the appropriateness of that reading accommodation. Could you imagine walking into the optometrist and seeing your eye doctor flip a coin to determine what the prescription of your eyeglasses should be to allow you to see better and be able to perform your daily tasks? Essentially, that's what we're doing for our struggling readers. So Dr. DeCoste and Ms. Wilson created the PAR, and we have online adapted it to UPAR. And so the process is exactly the same. So here we're going to first check a student's independent reading level. We're going to measure that and compare it to a student's comprehension at grade level using a human reader, and then further compare that to grade level text using a computer reader. And this is what it's going to look like for students. So students will initially go to a website and they are given a list of passages that are all at their independent reading level. These passages will contain different text types, and the student is making a selection simply based upon a reading preference. If the student cannot independently read the title passages, they can click on the speaker icon to the left and have the title passages read to them. They make their selection and they read this passage either out loud or silently to themselves, which they should be able to do because, again, this is at their independent level. And then they answer a series of comprehension questions. They will then see a much smaller subset of passages to pick from. These will all be the same text type as the independent read text type that the student selected. So they will get this passage, but the difference is these are all going to be grade level passages, and they will be read by a human reader. So the student is listening to that passage be read to them by actors and actresses that have gone into a recording studio and are reading these passages. Students can jump ahead. They can go back, re-listen, entirely up to them, and then they will be given a series of comprehension questions. Students can go back in the context of the passage and do have the ability to look for the answers for those questions if they have that study strategy. Students will then pick one more passage, and again at grade level, only this time we're going to give them that passage and we're going to read it to them using computer text or a text reader. Text readers do give us the ability to go ahead and highlight word by word. We can adjust the rate, all things that technology allows us to do that we cannot necessarily do with the human reader. Students can go back, reread, jump ahead, control the reading speed, entirely up to them, answer a series of comprehension questions, and then based upon how well or how poorly they have done, we will either increase the grade level of the text or decrease the grade level if they have not done well as we move our way back towards their independent level in order to tease out exactly how many grade levels the student's comprehension will improve using a read aloud support and which read aloud support best fits a learner's learning style. So here's our summary data. So remember our group of students that I showed you that picture of? We know that each of these students, of those 13 students, 11 of them benefit from a read aloud support. We have identified students who can actually comprehend above grade level with the use of a read aloud support. Students who get to grade level, which is our goal for every student, is to get to above or at grade level comprehension. We identified 3 students who are actually able to comprehend above their independent level, but not get to grade level. And we even identified 2 students that even though they're reading independently below grade level, even reading text to them did not improve their comprehension even 1 grade level. So let's talk about some results of the school districts who are using UPAR. And these results in this particular example are from an elementary school at a large urban school district out on the East Coast. And this school is actually a high achieving school. 70% of the students are actually passing the state assessment test. The problem is that for 3 consecutive years, they were flat. They did not decrease, but they did not increase. So the building principal created an access to complex text initiative that included a 3-step process, including using UPAR to measure those students who are not independently reading to grade level in grades 3 through 5. Every student in the school was given access to a text reader, and they made an instructional support switch from homogeneous grouping by ability level to heterogeneous. And this district uses the MAP, Measurements of Academic Progress. And you can see that the gains the student sees in 1 school year, looking at their fall and their red, the amount of red and yellow, to now all of a sudden the yellow and the greens measure that gain. Now, MAP uses what's called a RIT score, and the expectation for a student is to increase their RIT scores by 10 points over the course of an instructional year. Our students in our control groups of 3rd through 5th averaged RIT score increases of 22 in this particular case. Comparing this to a secondary school. So this actually comes from a middle school in Florida. Here in our middle school, they administered UPAR over a 1-week period to 659 students and discovered that 80% of them benefited from a read aloud support of some type. And of that, 72% could comprehend at or above grade level. The building principal used the next 100 days to create a reading challenge using Snap and Read. And students in that school used Snap and Read, a text reader, to read 2.6 million words. When we did a data dive into the Snap and Read data, of the top 10 users, 6 of them were general education students. And looking specifically at the students with IEPs, only 1 of the 4 had a read aloud accommodation, which kind of points back to that original research that I showed you several slides ago. So in my 20 years with Don Johnston, UPAR is my very favorite tool, because so often we talk about access to the curriculum, but now we know access to the curriculum is not enough. Students need to see success in the curriculum, and UPAR points the finger at the students who can have success in that curriculum even though they cannot independently read and comprehend classroom content on a daily basis. Now, classroom teachers, instead of spending their time modifying materials, now can provide simple instructional support and have confidence that students can comprehend that classroom content and then demonstrate that mastery on end of unit, ongoing progress monitoring, and state assessments.